Picture this. You wake up one morning in 1886 on the western frontier, thinking it's just another ordinary day. You're making breakfast, going about your routine, completely unaware that in a few months, you'll be facing the deadliest winter anyone has ever seen. A cold so brutal it could freeze you solid before you even realize what's happening. Cattle would stand frozen like statues in the snow, lifeless mid-step. If you're enjoying these stories, don't forget to hit like or subscribe. I'm always curious where you're listening from. Drop a comment with your location and the time there. It's mind-blowing to think people are drifting off to this tale from all corners of the world. Now, find your coziest spot. Take a slow, deep breath and let your body sink into whatever you're lying on. We're traveling back to 1886, and trust me, you'll feel a newfound gratitude for that soft bed and sturdy roof over your head. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the winter of 1886 on the frontier. Your eyes open slowly to a dim, half-lit world. The air inside your tiny cabin is sharp, stinging your lungs with every breath, crisp enough to make your nose tingle. Your bed isn't some plush, memory foam marvel. It's a simple wooden frame pushed against the wall, topped with a straw-filled mattress that crinkles when you move. The blankets piled on you are heavy, layers of wool, and whatever animal hides you manage to prepare during warmer months. You don't jump up right away. No, mornings here begin with lying still, gathering the courage to leave the relative warmth of your bed because the fire died hours ago, and the cabin's temperature isn't much better than outside. If you're lucky enough to have glass windows instead of oiled paper, they're completely frosted over, delicate ice patterns etched across them overnight. Nature's artistry would be beautiful if it weren't a stark reminder of the deadly cold. In the dim light, you see your breath clouding in front of your face. You reach a hand out from under the covers and instantly regret it. The air feels like it could shatter. This isn't just cold. It's the kind that bites, stinging exposed skin before numbing it alarmingly fast. Finally, knowing delay won't make it easier. You throw off the covers and quickly pull on clothes you've kept in bed overnight. You learned that trick months ago, tucking tomorrow's clothes at the foot of the bed so they're not ice cold when you put them on. Smart, right? Pioneers figured out countless little hacks like that. Your feet hit the plank floor, and you wince even through wool socks. The cold boards send a shock up your legs. Better get that fire going fast. Starting a fire in the morning was a race against frostbite. This wasn't about comfort, it was survival. You hurry to the small iron stove in the corner. The ashes from last night are cold, but you've prepared. Beside the stove sits a pile of kindling, thin wood strips, maybe some dried grass or paper if you're lucky. Most importantly, you've kept matches close, maybe even in your pocket while you slept to keep them dry. With stiffening fingers, you arrange the kindling, add a few larger sticks, and strike a match. The tiny flame seems fragile against the vast cold, but you cup your hands around it, protecting it like the lifeline it is. One thing Wild West winters taught you fast was what truly mattered. And fire? Fire was life. The kindling catches, and the first wave of relief washes over you. You add small splits of wood, then larger logs. The cast iron stove begins to warm, first the metal itself, then gradually radiating heat into the room. It'll be a while before the cabin feels comfortable, but at least there's hope. Now, here's something interesting. You're probably picturing logs of firewood, right? Sure, if you lived near forests, that's what you'd use. But across the Great Plains, trees were scarce. So what did people burn instead? Buffalo chips. Yep, exactly what it sounds like, dried buffalo dung. And when buffalo were hunted to near extinction, cow chips took their place. Sounds gross now, but it was brilliant. Once dried, these chips burned hot and steady with little smell. They were everywhere on the plains, free for the taking, easy to store, and a literal lifesaver when the nearest tree was miles away. You open the stove door and carefully add a few buffalo chips to the growing fire. They catch quickly, and soon the stove is properly hot. You hold your hands close, letting warmth seep back into your stiff fingers. The relief is incredible, like wrapping your hands around a steaming mug of coffee after being outside in the freezing cold. Outside, the world is still dark. The sun won't rise for another hour. Winter days here are short, leaving little daylight to get everything done. And there's always so much to do just to stay alive. Your cabin isn't big or fancy. Most weren't. Think 14 by 16 feet, about the size of a modern bedroom. One room for everything. Cooking, eating, sleeping, and on days too harsh to go outside, indoor chores. The walls are made of logs, gaps stuffed with mud, moss, or clay to keep the wind out. Or maybe you live in a sod house, a sod die, built from blocks of prairie turf stacked like bricks. These homes were great insulators, cooler in summer, warmer in winter than drafty wooden cabins, but they came with their own problems. Dirt constantly sifted from the ceiling. Bugs and snakes made themselves at home in the walls, and heavy rains could dissolve your house. You move around the cabin, getting ready for the day. There's a small table, maybe a bench or stool, and a trunk holding extra clothes and personal items. The windows are tiny. Glass was expensive and hard to transport, and every window was a place where precious heat could escape. Some cabins had no windows at all, just a door and maybe a hole in the roof to let smoke out. Speaking of smoke, as the fire grows, the cabin fills with a thin haze. No chimney is perfect, especially not the hastily built ones in pioneer cabins. You've gotten used to it, though. A little smoke is a fair trade for not freezing to death. The stove is now hot enough to cook. You set a cast iron pot on top, filled with water collected from a nearby stream or melted snow, and dried beans soaked overnight. If you're lucky, you add a small piece of salt pork. Breakfast is started. It'll take time to cook, but that's fine. You've got chores to do. You layer up before heading outside. Staying warm wasn't just about a heavy coat. It was about strategy. First, long underwear, called long johns, covering you from ankle to wrist, trapping warm air against your skin. Next, a heavy shirt, likely wool or flannel. Wool was the miracle fabric. It kept you warm even when wet, crucial when sweat or snow soaked through. Cotton, on the other hand, was deadly in winter. Once wet, it lost all insulation and sucked heat from your body. The saying went, "Cotton kills." Over the shirt, a wool vest for extra core protection, then a thick wool coat or jacket. For legs, heavy wool trousers, sometimes with leather chaps over them if you were riding. Feet got multiple pairs of wool socks and sturdy leather boots waterproofed with beeswax or animal fat. Hands were best in mittens, not gloves. Fingers shared warmth that way. And finally, a hat. Heat escaped fast through your head, so no one went bareheaded in winter. A wool hat pulled over your ears was standard. Fur was even better if you could get it. Beaver, rabbit, or buffalo fur, nature's best insulators, could mean the difference between life and death in a blizzard. And speaking of blizzards, that's what's on your mind today. The sky has that ominous, let-in-look old-timers learn to recognize instantly. A storm's brewing. You step outside, and the cold slams into you like a physical blow. It's not just the temperature. Though that might be 20 below, it's the wind. Out here on the open plains, nothing breaks its force. No hills, no forests, just endless flat land where the wind builds speed until it slices through your layers like they're nothing. Your first task, tending to whatever livestock you've got. Maybe a milk cow, some chickens, hopefully a horse or mule. These animals aren't just property, they're survival partners. You depend on each other. Their lean-to shelter blocks the worst of the wind, though it's barely warmer than outside. Inside, the animals huddle together, their steaming breath mingling in the air. The smell of hay and manure feels almost welcoming compared to the sterile winter emptiness. You break the inch-thick ice on their water trough, your knuckles already protesting the cold, and refill it from the well. Then comes the careful rationing of hay, measuring out just enough to keep them alive but make supplies last till spring. It's a cruel calculation. As you work, your fingers and toes start throbbing, that early warning of frostbite. You've seen what happens to those who ignore it. Blackened fingers, missing ears, the permanent damage of frozen flesh. Back inside, the cabin's blessed warmth hits you. Breakfast, beans and pork simmering for hours, fills the space with rich smells. You eat standing by the stove, the hot food fueling your body's inner furnace. Outside, the wind's picking up, driving icy particles that sting like needles. Time to prepare. Winter storms here weren't inconveniences, they were killers. The January 1887 blizzard dropped 16 inches of snow in as many hours. Temperatures plunged to 46 below. People got lost between their house and barn, wandering circles until the cold took them. Come spring, they'd find bodies just feet from safety. So you take no chances. You string a rope from cabin to barn, a lifeline for when visibility vanishes. You stockpile extra firewood and buffalo chips by the stove. You inventory food supplies, calculating how long you could last snowbound. Then you wait. There's an eerie quiet before heavy snow, like the world's holding its breath. Birds vanished south months ago, even the wind pauses. Then it begins, first lazy flakes, then a sideways driving whiteout. The storm howls around your cabin, probing every crack. Little snowdrifts form on indoor windowsills. You feed the fire higher than usual. Heat means survival now. By nightfall, it'll be 30 below, cold enough to freeze skin in minutes. You light an oil lamp. That tiny circle of light feels sacred against the roaring dark. Dinner's more beans, maybe cornbread if supplies allow. Then comes the long night's preparation. Every blanket piled on the bed, rocks heated in the fire, and wrapped in cloth for foot warmers. An old trick, but effective. As the storm screams outside, you realize something vital. Nobody survives this alone. When the storm breaks, you'll check on neighbors a mile or two away. Do they have enough fuel? Food. That's just how it worked. Communities shared resources, labor, knowledge. Barn raisings, harvests, house buildings were group efforts. That same spirit got people through winter. If someone ran out, others shared, not from charity, but knowing they might need help next time. That was the real secret to surviving the West's brutal cold. Human connection. People innovated, adapted, endured, but rarely alone. You sink deeper into bed, finding that perfect warm spot. The contrast makes your comfort sweeter, deadly cold just inches away, while you're wrapped in warmth you created. Your breathing slows as you picture those settlers bundled in furs around stoves while blizzards raged. There's deep comfort in human resilience, our ability to carve safety from harshness. The wind's ancient song continues outside as you shift, grateful for sturdy walls between you and the elements. Morning comes grudgingly after a night of bitter cold. The blizzard settled into steady snow, less violent, but no less dangerous. Inside, the fires burned low again. Leaving your warm nest still shocks the system, but you're quicker now rebuilding the fire, your fingers remembering winter's survival dance. Frost rhymes the cabin walls where your breath froze overnight, beautiful in its deadly way. As the fire grows, you peer outside. The world's transformed. Where there was a yard, a path, landmarks, now only white. Snowdrifts reach halfway up your walls. Your world shrunk to this tiny island of warmth in a frozen sea. The winter of 1886 to 87 wasn't just hard, it rewrote history. They'd call it the Great Die-Up, a grim play on cattle roundups, because it killed herds by the hundreds of thousands. The preceding summer's drought left little grass. Water sources dried up. Animals entered winter already weakened. Nature gave warnings. Birds migrated early. Beavers gathered extra wood, cattle grew thicker coats. But newcomers, especially Eastern and European cattle barons, missed the signs. When November brought early, heavy snows, the unprepared suffered. You stir morning porridge, oats if lucky, just flour and water if not, and think about winter diets. Food wasn't just hunger prevention, it fueled your body's furnace. People adapted eating habits, more fats, proteins. Pemmican, dried meat, fat, and berries, was the ultimate survival food, invented by natives and adopted by settlers. Your stores might include salt pork, smoked venison, root vegetables in straw-lined boxes under your bed, dried beans and corn. Every family became preservation experts, smoking, salting, drying, not hobbies, but life-saving skills. You add precious coffee to boiling water, or pine needle tea if coffee's gone. Not tasty, but vitamin-rich. The bitter brew's worth its weight in gold for warmth and energy. Outside, livestock need tending despite the weather. You layer up strategically. Long johns, thick wool or flannel, ankle to wrist coverage. Shirt, heavy wool or flannel, women wore layered dresses. Vest, extra core insulation. Coat, wool or fur, buffalo coats were prized. Trousers, wool, sometimes with leather chaps. Footwear, multiple wool socks, beeswaxed boots. Hands, fur-lined mittens, better than gloves. Head, fur hat with ear flaps, critical for heat retention. Dressed, you brace for the cold's assault. Even expecting it, the intensity stunts. Air so cold it feels solid. Your breath freezes instantly. Snow's 2 feet deep, drifts higher. Breaking trail exhausts you. Sweat forms under layers. Dangerous because it'll freeze when you stop. You follow the guide rope to the animals. They greet you restlessly, hungry, thirsty, confined. Breaking the water trough's thick ice comes first, then careful hay rationing. Feed must last till spring, and in 1886 to 87, spring felt impossibly distant. For cattle barons, this winter was catastrophic. The open-range system, herds roaming free, rounded up seasonally, collapsed when storms hit. Cattle froze standing up, piled against fences, starved under deep snow. By spring, carcasses littered the plains, rivers clogged with dead animals. Theodore Roosevelt lost over half his Dakota herd, calling losses crippling. The open-range era ended that winter. Surviving ranchers adapted. Smaller herds, fenced pastures, winter feed, shelters. You return to the cabin along the guide rope, the winter sunset painting spectacular colors. Indigo skies, pink streaks, but you don't linger. Beauty won't keep you alive. Inside, you coax the banked fire back to life. That simple act, building fire, feels sacred here. It's not comfort, it's survival. As numbness fades from your fingers, that painful screaming memes tingling, you reflect on different survival strategies. Native Americans used well-designed teepees, conical shapes with central fires, adjustable covers, snow-banked edges for insulation. Followed seasonal buffalo movements, wintered in sheltered valleys. European settlers, Scandinavians built double-wall cabins. Germans introduced efficient cast-iron stoves. Southerners suffered most, unprepared for plains winters. Dugouts/sod houses. Earth-insulated homes maintained steady temps, but leaked rain and hosted pests. Night falls. You bank the fire carefully. Too low risks freezing, too high waste fuel. Dinners simmered stew, stretching meager meat with beans and roots. Food preservation was critical. Smoking, salt-cured meat hung in smokehouses. Salting, meat packed in salt or brine. Root cellars, underground storage for vegetables. Drying, fruits, berries sun-dried for winter. You prepare for bed. Heated rocks wrapped in cloth, water jugs for warmth. Nighttime security matters too. Doors barred against predators, windows shuttered against heat loss. Sleep patterns differed then. People slept more in winter, less in summer, often in 2 segments with nighttime activity in between. This biphasic rhythm may be more natural than modern continuous sleep. As you drift off, you think of spring, distant but certain. That hope, that winter's end, sustained generations through unimaginable hardship. The blizzard settles into a rhythm over the following days, alternating between violent outbursts and brief respites that allow cautious ventures outside. Inside your cabin, you develop your own rhythm too. Winter's harshness imposes a strange simplicity to life, stripping away all but the most essential tasks. Each morning brings the same rituals: rebuilding the fire, feeding livestock, melting snow for water, the endless battle against cold that never truly relents. Yet subtle changes whisper through this routine. The sun rises marginally earlier each day. The light grows slightly stronger, less watery. Nature's quiet promises that spring will come, even as winter maintains its iron grip. Your survival system revolves around the stove, never allowed to die completely, carefully managed to maximize warmth while conserving precious fuel. Near its heat, you've created a drying zone for mittens, socks, and boots. Dampness in winter wasn't just uncomfortable. It could be lethal, stealing body heat. In the cabin's coldest corners, you store food that needs freezing, meat perhaps, or containers of milk turning into primitive ice cream. The cabin itself, maybe 14 by 16 feet, demands perfect organization. Beds double as seating, tables fold against walls. Every inch of vertical space holds shelves or hooks. This morning, you notice something new outside. The snow's developed a thin crust, still breakable underfoot, but definitely changed from the powdery fluff of deep winter. To experienced eyes, this signals seasonal transition, warmer daytime temps briefly melting the surface before nighttime refreezing. Weather reading was an essential frontier skill. Without forecasts, people relied on natural indicators. Cloud formations, wind direction shifts, animal behavior, smoke patterns from chimneys. Many observations became rhymes. Red sky at night, sailor's delight. For indigenous peoples, specialized weather watchers guided hunting and travel decisions. European settlers adapted their homeland knowledge through often fatal trial and error. You bundle up for outdoor chores, generating body heat without sweating. The animals depend entirely on human care now. Their winter adaptations, thicker coats, huddling together, only go so far. Barns require preparation equal to human dwellings. Cracks sealed, hay bales stacked as insulation, water troughs moved indoors. The 1886 to 87 winter devastated livestock, especially open-range cattle. The combination of summer drought, early snows, and record cold created perfect disaster. Ranchers who lost thousands adapted afterward, smaller herds, fenced pastures, winter feed production. This transformed Western culture, ending the romantic cowboy era. You assess the sky. Brittle blue suggests continued cold, but high thin clouds moving in may bring change. Safe enough for postponed tasks. Fence repairs, firewood cutting, path clearing. Winter work required planning. Strenuous tasks during warmest hours, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Paced to avoid sweat freezing later. Everything takes longer, restricted movement, numb fingers. Yet winter offered unique opportunities. Logging, frozen ground eased log transport. Ice harvesting, cut blocks stored in sawdust-insulated houses. Trapping, prime season for thick winter pelts. By midday, you return to the cabin where the banked fire maintains warmth. Lunch is simple, bread with precious preserved butter, maybe leftover stew. Winter diets grew monotonous, stored grains, root vegetables, dried meats. This contributed to cabin fever, a mix of vitamin deficiency, boredom, and isolation that caused irritability and depression. Native communities combated this with vitamin-rich preserved plants, rose hips, winter ceremonies, and storytelling. Group activities despite confinement. Settlers developed similar traditions, quilting bees, music nights, reading aloud. Winter became education time. Frontier schools often operated seasonally, while remote families taught children at home. Afternoon brings weather changes. The high clouds thicken, wind shifts southward, damp air hinting at possible thaw or new storm. You prepare for both. Extra firewood by the door, water containers filled, ready to eat cold foods. As early darkness falls, you light precious candles or oil lamps. Tallow or beeswax, if available, used sparingly. Long evenings fostered. Handcrafts, woodworking, sewing, toolmaking. Music, fiddles, harmonicas, singing. Storytelling, family histories, folk tales. For indigenous peoples, winter was sacred story season. Some tales could only be told with snow on the ground. Your evening might include mending clothes by firelight or planning tomorrow's tasks. The sounds of a frontier winter night form their own music. Fire crackling, logs settling in walls, distant wolf howls, wind's constant murmur. At bedtime, you bank the fire meticulously, coals arranged to smolder till morning. The bed welcomes you, straw mattress rough but familiar after months of use. You might add, heated stones wrapped in cloth, hot water bottles, carefully layered blankets, wool against skin, hides on top. Sleep patterns followed natural light. Longer in winter, shorter in summer. Many experienced biphasic sleep, awakening briefly at midnight before returning to rest. This may be more natural than modern, uninterrupted sleep. Dreams often grew vivid during winter isolation, the mind creating journeys the body couldn't take. As you drift off, the contrast between your warm cocoon and the frozen world outside feels profound. Human fragility versus ingenuity. Your body releases the day's tensions gradually. Feet uncurling from cold. Leg muscles relaxing after snow trail breaking. Back settling into the mattress. Breath deepening as safety registers. Outside, the night may bring fresh snow or starry skies, their brilliance unimaginable to modern light-polluted eyes. The cabin creaks softly, a familiar lullaby. Days blend into winter's rhythm, but subtle signs promise change. Stronger sunlight, different snow textures, earlier dawns. For survivors of 1886 to 87, spring would reveal the full devastation. Carcasses thawing, rivers clogged with dead cattle. Roosevelt wrote of crippling losses that changed ranching forever. But tonight, there's just this moment. The fires glow through stove cracks, the weight of blankets, the certainty that winter, like all things, must eventually pass. The dripping sound wakes you, an unfamiliar rhythm after months of winter's silence. Water droplets fall from the cabin eaves, splashing onto the softening snow below. Overnight, temperatures crept above freezing for the first time in weeks. Outside, the snow's surface glistens with an icy crust that reflects sunlight painfully bright. The air carries a new dampness, still cold, but different. Change is coming. For survivors of the brutal 1886 to 87 winter, this thaw brought mixed emotions. Relief, yes, the deadly cold loosening its grip, but also dread about what the melting snow would reveal. How many cattle survived? Were fences and barns still standing? What damage lay hidden beneath the frozen surface? You dress quickly, the morning routine now ingrained through months of repetition. The stove still needs feeding, but with less urgency than during winter's peak. Breakfast might include a special treat today, the last jar of summer berries mixed into cornbread, or a spoonful of hoarded honey. On the frontier, such small luxuries marked seasonal transitions more powerfully than any calendar. Stepping outside, the transformed world assaults your senses. Where once there was only sterile whiteness, now 1,000 tiny streams carve paths through decaying snow. The air smells different too, earth and wet bark replacing winter's metallic sharpness. But this transitional beauty is treacherous. The surface snow melts by day, refreezing at night into jagged ice that can slice through leather boots. What was once frozen solid becomes bottomless mud. You check on the livestock first. The animals sense the change, restless after months of confinement, their winter-thick coats now patchy and shedding. The cow lows impatiently, chickens scratch at thawing ground. But you must restrain their excitement. Early spring is the most dangerous time. New grass won't come for weeks, and winter-weakened animals gorging on old, moldy forage could founder and die. The barn inspection reveals winter's toll. Chewed wood where starving mice gnawed through feed bags, a sagging roof beam overloaded with snow. You make mental notes of repairs needed when the ground firms up. Everything takes longer in this transitional season. Simple tasks become exercises in frustration as tools slip in muddy hands and boots weigh 20 pounds with clinging clay. By midday, the sun feels almost warm on your back as you haul water from the newly thawed well. The satisfaction of drawing clear liquid instead of chipping ice is profound. You take a long drink straight from the bucket. No need to melt snow anymore, and the cold, clean taste is better than finest whiskey. Neighbors emerge like bears from hibernation. At the distant Henderson place, smoke rises steadily, a good sign. You'll visit soon, exchange news, perhaps trade remaining stores. Everyone will be taking inventory now. How much seed grain remains? Did the potato cellar stay frost-free? Are any tools lost or broken beyond repair? The winter's isolation makes these first social encounters strangely intense. Conversations stumble at first, voices rusty from disuse. then flow in torrents. News from town, gossip, survival stories. Everyone has them. The Larson boy lost 2 toes to frostbite. Old man Jenkins survived alone for 3 weeks after his chimney collapsed. The Carter women delivered their baby during the worst blizzard, mother and child both living miracles. As afternoon shadows lengthen, you notice the first true signs of life. A spider crawling on a sun-warmed log, chickadees singing their spring song. Your grandmother's rhyme comes unbidden. When chickadees call springs here in February, they're just fooling. When they sing it in March, they mean business. Back inside, the cabin feels different. Not just warmer, but somehow smaller. The walls that protected you all winter now seem to press in. You throw open the door despite the chill, airing out months of wood smoke, wet wool, and close living. Spring cleaning begins instinctively, sweeping winter's grit from floors, beating dust from bedding, scrubbing soot-blackened pots until they shine. The physical act of cleansing mirrors some deeper need to wash away not just dirt, but winter's psychological weight. The heavy hides come down from window coverings, folded away until next winter. Sunlight, real sunlight, not winter's pale imitation, floods across the freshly scrubbed floorboards. As evening falls, you don't bank the fire as fiercely. Nights still freeze, but the deathly cold is broken. The bedtime ritual changes too. Fewer blankets, no more heated rocks. Sleep comes differently now, your body attuned to the shifting season. Dreams change flavor, less about survival, more about planting and growth. Yet winter's lessons linger. You still check the fire twice before bed, still wake instinctively when the wind rises. Those instincts, hard-earned through months of hardship, won't fade quickly. Nor should they. Next winter will come again, and the next. But for now, there is this. The earth turning warm beneath your hands, the smell of wet soil, the irrepressible green shoots already stirring beneath the snow's retreating edge. The morning dawns with a new quality of light, golden rather than the winter's metallic blue. You step outside without your usual layers, testing the air like a farmer assessing soil. The earth exhales its frosty breath in visible puffs as the last stubborn snowdrifts retreat into shadowed hollows. This is the season of in-between, when winter's rules no longer apply, but spring's abundance hasn't yet arrived. Your work turns urgent now. The mud season demands constant improvisation. Paths must be corduroyed with logs to cross quagmires. Tools need extra cleaning to prevent rust, and livestock require vigilant monitoring as they test weakened legs on uncertain ground. That's how old Tom lost his prize bull last spring. The animal sank belly deep in deceptively soft ground and couldn't be extracted before hypothermia set in. The cabin transforms daily. Windows thrown open exhale months of accumulated wood smoke and damp wool smells. Winter's carefully organized interior gives way to spring chaos. Seed packets spread across the table, harnesses needing repair draped over chairs, buckets of maple sap collected during the first thaw crowding the doorway. You don't mind the clutter. After winter's enforced order, this beautiful mess feels like life itself. Neighbors arrive without ceremony, appearing like the season's first flowers. Mrs. Henderson brings a basket of early dandelion greens, bitter but packed with vitamins after months of starch-heavy winter food. The Larson boys drag in a mud-caked harness needing mending. Conversation flows easily now, no longer strained by winter's tense survival talk. Plans are made, the communal barn raising scheduled after planting, the church social that will feature your fiddle playing. You walk your property with new eyes, noting where winter's wrath hit hardest. The north fence lies flattened like matchsticks, a casualty of snow load and hungry deer. The root cellar fared better. Your careful insulation kept the potatoes from freezing, though the carrots grew rubbery. In the pasture, new grass struggles through matted dead growth, each green blade a minor miracle. Work parties form spontaneously. Today it's clearing the creek blockage where winter ice shoved debris against the mill race. Tomorrow you'll help rebuild the Johnson's chicken coop. This is how the frontier thrives, not through solitary struggle but shared labor. The women work alongside men, their skirts tucked up like pioneer pantaloons, all distinctions blurred in the face of necessary work. Someone produces a jug of last fall cider, warm and slightly fermented, passed around to cut the dust in throats raw from winter's dry air. Children reappear like butterflies from cocoons, their winter pale faces now flushed with activity. They dart between work crews, delivering messages and water dippers, already barefoot despite the lingering chill. Their laughter sounds foreign after months of adult solemnity, a joyful noise that seems to accelerate the very melting of the snow. As days lengthen, routines shift. You rise earlier, sleep later, no longer bound by winter's strict light conservation. The stove still burns, but mostly for cooking now rather than survival. Evenings find you outside more often, watching the sunset paint your recovering land in hopeful colors. The first hardy flowers push through, crocuses defiant in their purple bravery, snowdrops nodding white heads where snow still lingers. Yet winter's shadow remains. Nights still dip below freezing, and you instinctively listen for the telltale creak of rafters that signals another possible storm. The cellar holds emergency rations. You won't be caught unprepared again. When a late snow squall dusts the fresh grass one April morning, your hands automatically check your coat pockets for mittens that are no longer there. The cattle, turned out to pasture at last, are living barometers of the land's recovery. Their ribs still show through shaggy coats, but their eyes brighten as they taste real grass again. You count them daily, noting which one's winter left too weak to continue. The old brindle cow who can't rise without help, the yearling steer who coughs persistently. These decisions weigh heavy, but sentiment has no place in survival arithmetic. At the trading post, stories circulate like the new season's pollen. The merchant's ledger tells its own tale. Last fall's orders for fancy goods were placed now by practical requests. Plow blades, seed grain, lumber. People speak of winter in the past tense, but their bodies remember the coughs that linger, the limps from poorly healed frostbite, the way everyone unconsciously edges closer to the stove despite the mild day. You inventory your own losses. 3 fruit trees killed by ice storms. The entire seed potato crop rotted in storage. Your best axe had cracked during February's deep freeze. But the ledger also shows gains. New skills learned through necessity. Deeper bonds with neighbors. A hard-won understanding of your own resilience. As twilight falls on this transitional day, you pause in your repairs to watch the season's first bats flit across the darkening sky. The winter of 1886 to 87 will enter frontier legend, joining the terrible winter of 49 and the starvation winter of 58. Those who endured it will forever measure other hardships against its standard. You bank the fire out of habit, then catch yourself and let it burn lower. Tomorrow brings the season's first real planting, peas and spinach that can withstand frost. The almanac predicts a warm spring, but you trust your own observations more. The oak leaves are unfurling smaller than usual, nature's sign of lingering cold. You'll plant accordingly. As sleep comes, it's different from winter's exhausted collapse. Your body thrums with productive fatigue rather than survival depletion. Dreams fill with growing things rather than freezing tears. Yet when the wind rises around midnight, you still wake instantly, winter's lessons written permanently into your nerves. The last thing you hear before sleep reclaims you is the unmistakable sound of geese returning, their triumphant honks declaring winter's final surrender. The first true morning of spring arrives not with fanfare, but with a quiet certainty. You wake to find frost absent from the cabin roof for the first time in 6 months. The air carries subtle revolutions, the loamy sin of thawing earth, the distant chuckle of snowmelt finding its way to creeks, the busy chatter of sparrows arguing over nesting sites. Where winter's palette was monochrome, whites, grays, and the occasional bleak blue, the world now experiments with tentative color, the purple haze of budding red maples, the fiery yellow of willow catkins, the improbable green fuzz appearing on distant hillsides. Your body remembers winter's harsh lessons even as spring asserts itself. The scar on your thumb from the axe that slipped in February still tingles in damp weather. Your left knee protests when climbing the pasture hill where you fell through snow-hidden ice. These are winter's tattoos, permanent reminders etched into flesh and bone. Yet movement comes easier now without layers of wool, and fingers no longer ache with cold at dawn. The cabin undergoes its seasonal metamorphosis. Heavy hides come down from walls and windows, revealing sunlight-starved surfaces bleached pale. Every possession migrates outdoors for airing, blankets draped over fences, mattresses propped against woodpiles, winter clothes beaten free of months of wood smoke and sweat. What was necessary survival gear in January becomes oppressive clutter in April. You burn last year's broken harness straps in a ceremonial fire, watching the flames consume winter's detritus. Work takes on new urgency. The planting almanac shows ideal days for root crops approaching. and the lunar phase favors above-ground plants soon after. You walk your fields testing soil temperature, when earth crumbles freely in your hand instead of forming icy clumps, when bare feet can endure 3 minutes of contact, then the ancient dance begins. The oxen, sluggish after winter's idleness, strain against the plow as it turns over soil that hasn't breathed since autumn. Behind you, children follow with seed bags, their small fingers precisely spacing kernels in the furrows. The rhythm of spring work differs fundamentally from winter's survival routine. Where December demanded constant vigilance against cold, April requires synchronized labor with nature's schedule. Pre-dawn. Men tools by lantern light. Morning. Plow while soil retains overnight moisture. Midday. Repair fences as livestock grow restless. Afternoon. Plant before afternoon winds dry seeds. Dusk. Protect tender shoots from lingering frost. Neighbors reappear like migratory birds, each arrival sparking small celebrations. The Carter boys return from winter trapping with pelts and stories. Old Widow Jenkins emerges from her snowbound cabin, blinking like a groundhog at the changed world. At the Crossroads store, winter survivors gather to trade not just goods but experiences. Who lost what? Who invented which clever solution? Who didn't make it through? These conversations follow an unspoken ritual, balancing grief with gratitude. The land itself tells winter's aftermath. Snowmelt reveals. Fence lines where cattle piled up against barriers. Creek bins choked with winter-killed trees. Pasture areas grazed to dust before the freeze. You walk your property with the grim tally of a battlefield surgeon. The old oak by the creek split under ice weight. 3 sheep perished in the January drift. The root cellar flooded during the January thaw, ruining half your carrots. Yet for every loss, nature offers compensation. The ice-killed trees will season into next winter's firewood. The grazed pastures regrow thicker. The flooded cellar now hosts a colony of edible mushrooms. Spring's greatest gift is variety returning to your diet. After months of salt pork and beans, the first greens taste like miracles. You gather. Dandelion leaves for bitter salads. Wild onions to flavor stews. Nettles, with gloved hands, for iron-rich soups. The seasonal shift alters your body's needs. Heavy fats that sustained you through cold now sit greasy in your stomach. You crave the tartness of early rhubarb, the crunch of radishes, the freshness of watercress from the creek. Even your sleep changes, less of winter's dead-to-the-world exhaustion, more alert rest punctuated by dreams of growth and plenty. Community events regain their seasonal rhythm. The schoolhouse reopens, its winter stove gone cold at last. Church services move from private homes back to the proper building. The first barn raising of the season becomes both practical necessity and social celebration. Men competing to show off winter-honed skills. Women sharing preserved foods now that fresh ingredients remain scarce. Children read as forming the simple joy of playing outdoors. Yet winter's specter lingers. When an unseasonal hailstorm pelts the tinder shoots, you respond with winter-honed reflexes, hauling blankets to protect plants, moving livestock to shelter with practiced efficiency. The habits of conservation remain too. You still save bacon grease automatically, still check the fire twice before bed, still startle slightly at the sound of wind and the new leaves. As the season progresses, the scars, both on the land and your psyche, begin to fade. Grass grows over the cattle burial mound. The mended harness works as well as the original. Your frostbitten toe no longer throbs except in the coldest rain. What remains is the wisdom, hard-won and indelible. Always store 20% more than you think you'll need. Wool beats cotton when lives depend on it. The value of a rope guide in whiteout conditions. How to read weather and animal behavior. That human connection matters more than stockpiles. The winter of 1886 to 87 joins your personal mythology, its stories already acquiring the polished sheen of legend. Around evening fires, you'll recount the time you followed the fence line home blind in a blizzard, or how the milk cow saved your life by blocking the door during the worst storm. These narratives, repeated and refined, will become the markers by which you measure all future hardships. As you lie down on this spring night, windows open to the peeper frog's chorus, blankets reduced to a single layer, your winter-tuned ears still detect the faintest wrong note in the wind's song. But for the first time in months, you choose to ignore it. Spring has truly come, and with it, the luxurious certainty that tonight at least, survival doesn't hang in the balance. The spring sun climbs higher with each passing day. its warmth now a tangible presence rather than just a promise. You find yourself working shirtless in the fields by mid-morning, your winter-pale skin drinking in the heat like parched earth absorbing rain. The calluses on your hands have softened from their winter rigidity, transforming into the more supple toughness needed for planting season. Your body remembers the harsh lessons of winter even as it revels in spring's abundance. When an unexpected cold snap hits, your fingers automatically curl into the protective positioning they learned during blizzards. The cabin undergoes its seasonal metamorphosis. The heavy wool blankets that formed your winter fortress are now folded away in cedar chests, replaced by lighter quilts. Windows that were sealed tight against winter's bite now stand open day and night, inviting in the scent of apple blossoms and fresh-turned earth. The iron stove, once the pulsating heart of your survival, becomes merely a cooking appliance, its constant hunger for fuel now reduced to occasional feedings. You take meals outdoors whenever possible, eating on the same tree stump that served as your winter wood-chopping block, its surface still bearing the scars of countless axe blows. Your daily rhythms shift to match nature's spring tempo. Pre-dawn, collect eggs still warm from the hens. Morning, weed while dew keeps the soil soft. Midday, mend tools in the shade during the heat's peak. Afternoon, tend to livestock as they seek water. Dusk, harvest greens for supper, their crispness a revelation after winter's preserved foods. Neighbors reappear like migrating birds, their visits no longer fraught with winter's urgency. Young Billy Carter brings the first wild strawberries in exchange for help fixing his plow. Old Mrs. Jenkins shares her secret for protecting tender plants from late frosts. These interactions carry a new lightness. Where winter conversations centered on survival, spring talk turns to planting strategies and community plans. The land's transformation accelerates daily. Where snowdrifts stood chest-high just weeks ago, buttercups now gild the meadows. You've learned to read nature's subtle signals. When oak leaves reach squirrel-ear size, it's time to plant corn. Morel mushrooms appearing means the soil has truly warmed. Bullfrog's evening chorus signals the last frost has passed. Yet winter's scars remain visible to those who know where to look. The North Pasture's grass grows in uneven patches, lush where snowdrifts fertilized the soil, sparse where wind scoured the earth bare. Certain trees stand stubbornly leafless while their neighbors flourish, their winterkill only now becoming apparent. The creek has carved a new channel where ice dams forced a permanent diversion during the January thaw. You meet these changes with winter-honed pragmatism. The dead trees become next year's firewood. The barren pasture gets sown with nitrogen-rich clover. The redirected creek now irrigates what was once dry ground. Every loss contains the seed of compensation, perhaps winter's most enduring lesson. Spring's sudden abundance brings its own challenges. After months of carefully rationed provisions, you now face eggs accumulating faster than you can eat or trade, milk requiring daily churning to prevent spoilage, greens maturing quicker than you can harvest them. The mental shift from scarcity to surplus takes time. Old habits die hard. You still find yourself portioning food as if preparing for another siege, then laughing when you realize there's plenty. The Larsons gladly take your extra milk since their cow didn't survive the winter, and the Crossroads store trades salt for your surplus eggs. Community life regains its rich texture. The schoolhouse echoes with children's recitations after winter's silence. Saturday dances resume at the Grange Hall, their fiddle music carrying across fields no longer muffled by snow. Church socials become planning sessions for summer projects rather than grim survival meetings. Yet winter's legacy persists in subtle ways. Collection plates pass more generously, the sick receive quicker visits, and no traveler is ever turned away hungry. Your skills expand with the season. Where winter taught survival, spring demands cultivation. You learn the art of grafting fruit tree branches, how moon phases affect plant growth, what weeds reveal about soil conditions, when to let fields rest between plantings. This knowledge comes from diverse sources, neighbors' advice, almanac wisdom, and plenty of trial and error. Some techniques succeed brilliantly, companion planting beans with corn, while others fail spectacularly, the disastrous tobacco experiment. Each lesson gets recorded in your journal alongside winter's hard-won knowledge. As spring progresses, winter's immediacy fades, but its lessons crystallize. You build a proper root cellar to replace last winter's makeshift one. The new hayloft holds double last year's capacity. Extra will blank its weight in cedar chests, though months will pass before they're needed. These preparations aren't born of fear, but of respect, the difference between dreading winter and being ready for it. The children, so vulnerable during the cold months, now blossom like the land itself. Their winter-pale cheeks glow with color and minor scrapes. They shed shoes at first opportunity, their feet toughening against stones and thorns. Their games reflect the new season, building creek dams instead of snow forts, chasing butterflies rather than tracking animal prints. Yet sometimes at dusk, you'll catch them unconsciously arranging sticks in the precise wood-stacking patterns winter demanded. The animals too show seasonal transformations. The milk cow's shaggy winter coat sheds in great clumps, revealing glossy new hair beneath. Chickens abandon their winter huddle to range freely, scratching for insects. Even the workhorses play like foals when freed from harness, rolling in fresh grass with all four legs kicking at the sky. Only the oldest dog still seeks the stove's warmth on cool mornings, a gray-muzzled veteran of too many hard winters. Lying awake on a warm night, windows open to the chorus of peepers and crickets, you realize winter's greatest gift, the ability to fully appreciate spring's ordinary miracles. The luxury of kicking off blankets, the wonder of biting into a fresh radish, the sheer joy of walking outside without layers of preparation. These simple pleasures shine brighter against winter's dark backdrop. Your hands, resting on the sun-warmed sheets, tell the whole story. The lingering frostbite scars from February contrast with the new calluses from May's plowing. They embody both seasons, survival and abundance. The same hands that desperately clutched at warmth now lie open and relaxed, ready to receive whatever the growing season brings. The rhythm of summer settles over the land like a warm blanket, its predictable patterns a stark contrast to winter's erratic brutality. You wake each morning to birdsong rather than howling winds, your body naturally attuned to the sun's early rise. The cabin, once your winter fortress, now serves as little more than a place to sleep. Its doors standing open from dawn till dusk, the heavy shutters stacked against the wall like forgotten soldiers. Your hands tell the story of seasons in transition. The cracked knuckles from hauling icy water have healed, replaced by the stained fingertips of berry picking. The winter's axe calluses have softened into the different toughness required for hoeing rows and milking cows. Yet when an unexpected summer hailstorm sends marble-sized ice pellets ricocheting off the roof, your body reacts with winter-honed reflexes, grabbing blankets to protect seedlings before conscious thought kicks in. Work flows in steady cycles now, dictated by growth rather than survival. Pre-dawn, milk the cow while morning cool lingers. Morning, weed crops before heat becomes oppressive. Midday, repair tools in the shade with cool cider. Afternoon, harvest what's ripe before evening pests arrive. Dusk, water plants as shadows stretch long. The community thrives in ways impossible during winter's isolation. The schoolhouse buzzes with children freed from winter's confinement. Church picnics last from morning till sunset, their tables groaning with seasonal abundance. Fresh bread, early apples, cold spring water flavored with mint. Neighbors stop by unannounced, their visits leisurely rather than urgent. Young Tom Henderson brings wild blackberries and stays to help mend the pasture fence. Old Widow Jenkins shares her famous dandelion wine and stories of winters past. Yet beneath summer's easy rhythm, winter's lessons persist. You notice it in the way. Every meal includes something preserved for later. The woodpile grows steadily despite the heat. Neighbors still check on each other after storms. Children are never turned away from a meal. The land offers up its bounty with summer's generosity. Your garden overflows with crisp radishes and tender lettuce, sugar snap peas that burst in the mouth, New potatoes with skin so thin it rubs off. Fat raspberries that stain fingers purple. After winter's monotony of salt pork and beans, each flavor feels like a revelation. You eat with seasonal urgency, knowing these fragile pleasures won't last. Some gets preserved, berries dried on the roof, herbs hung in bundles from the rafters, but much is consumed in joyful immediacy. Livestock flourish on the rich summer grass. The cow's milk runs thick with cream, the chickens lay eggs with yolks like liquid gold. Even the workhorses grow sleek, their winter ribs disappearing under glossy coats. Only the oldest animals show signs of winter's passage. The mule's lingering cough, the spotted hen that never regained full plumage after the February freeze. Summer nights bring different rhythms. Where winter demanded early bedtimes to conserve heat and energy, now you linger outside watching fireflies dance over the fields. Conversations stretch long and lazy, punctuated by the snap of whittling wood and the occasional fiddle tune. Children chase lightning bugs until they collapse in the grass, their tired bodies carried inside long after winter's curfew would have demanded. Yet winter's wisdom surfaces unexpectedly. When a drought threatens the crops, you implement water-saving tricks learned from melting snow efficiently. When a neighbor falls ill during harvest, the community rallies with winter's cooperative spirit. The cellar stays stocked despite summer's abundance, because no one who survived the great die-up will ever be caught unprepared again. You find yourself thinking differently about time. Winter taught the value of each hour's survival. Summer shows the luxury of planning ahead. The almanac gets consulted for fall planting dates even as you pick summer squash. The woodpile grows daily, though its need remains months away. Preserving food becomes a happy ritual rather than desperate necessity. The pop of a successful canning seal bringing satisfaction no winter meal could match. The children, so vulnerable during winter's harshness, now bloom with summer's vigor. Their winter pale skin turns golden brown, their legs strong from constant movement. They move through the fields with baskets like miniature harvesters, their sharp eyes spotting every ripe berry and early mushroom. Yet sometimes at dusk, you'll catch them unconsciously practicing winter skills, testing knots for strength, stacking wood in efficient patterns, their bodies remembering what their minds have begun to forget. As the season peaks, the first signs of autumn whisper at the edges. Morning dew lingers longer. Certain trees show tentative yellow at their tips. The spring's frantic growth slows to steady maturation. You note these changes with mixed feelings, sadness at summer's passing, but also quiet pride in how much better prepared you'll be when winter returns. Standing in your fields at sunset, the air rich with the scent of ripe grain and warm earth, you realize winter's unexpected gift. It taught you to fully appreciate summer's ordinary miracles. The luxury of bare feet on warm soil. The wonder of biting into a sun-warmed tomato. The simple joy of working till dark without fearing the cold. These pleasures glow brighter against the memory of frozen mornings and rationed meals. Your hands, resting on the fence post, bear witness to both seasons. The lingering scars from frostbite contrasting with summer's new calluses. They tell the complete story, hardship and abundance, survival and thriving. The same hands that trembled while striking winter matches now move with confident ease as they select the perfect peach. And when the season's first cool night arrives, just a whisper of autumn in the air, you don't shudder like you once might have. Instead, you simply reach for a light blanket, secure in the knowledge that whatever winter brings, you're ready. The first maple leaves blush crimson, their fading chlorophyll revealing hidden pigments like winter's approach uncovering forgotten preparations. You noticed the subtle signs earlier this year, the sharper angle of afternoon light, the frantic squirrel activity, the way morning dew lingers until midday. Where last autumn found you unprepared, now you move with purposeful rhythm between harvest and preservation. Your body remembers winter's demands even as it works through summer's final tasks. The calluses from hayforks feel familiar after last year's ice axes. Your shoulders, browned by months of sun, instinctively tense when northerly winds carry the first chill. When an early frost warning comes, Your hands move with practiced efficiency, blanketing tender plants, draining irrigation lines, covering the last tomatoes with spare sheets. Winter's lessons have become second nature. The cabin transforms into a seasonal crossroads. Summer's lightweight tools get cleaned and stored while winter gear emerges from shadowed corners. Woolens aired and checked for moth damage. Snowshoes rest-strung with fresh rawhide. Ice fishing traps repaired and oiled. Windows that stood open day and night now close at dusk, though daytime still welcomes autumn's crisp air. The stove, neglected all summer, gets its chimney swept and firebox scrubbed. Its first experimental fires carry the nostalgic scent of last year's applewood. Harvest dominates every waking hour. The garden's final yield surpasses last year's. Plump pumpkins, fat storage onions, potatoes with thick, earthy skins. Fruit trees bend under their bounty, their branches needing props to prevent splitting. You preserve with methodical urgency. Apples sliced and dried on the roof. Beans strung and hung in the smokehouse. Cabbages packed into sauerkraut crocks. Pumpkin flesh boiled down to thick butter. The rhythm of autumn work blends summer's abundance with winter's foresight. Dawn, harvest before frost melts and spoils crops. Morning, process produce while daylight lasts. Afternoon, store firewood with bark side down. Dusk, inventory preserves by lantern light. Neighbors reappear with autumn's urgency, their visits purposeful rather than social. The Carter boys help dig the root cellar deeper in exchange for your spare lumber. Old Man Jenkins inspects your chimney with a critical eye, pointing out needed repairs before snowfall. These interactions lack summer's leisure but carry winter's solidarity, the unspoken understanding that community remains our best defense against the cold. The land prepares in its own way. Geese arrow southward in ragged V formations. Bears raid remaining berry bushes with newfound urgency. Even the trees participate, shedding leaves to conserve moisture, directing energy downward to roots that must survive frozen months. You've learned to read these signs as clearly as any almanac. When oak acorns drop thickly, winter comes early. Squirrels nesting low in trees predict heavy snow. Thick apple skins mean a hard freeze approaches. Yet this year differs markedly from last. Where autumn once brought anxious uncertainty, now you work with quiet confidence. The root cellar shelves groan under their load. The woodpile stretches twice as long. The livestock barn sports new insulation between its logs. These preparations represent more than physical security. They're psychological armor against winter's terrors. Community events take on practical tones. The fall festival features preserving demonstrations alongside pie contests. The church social includes a blanket drive for new settlers. Even children's games reflect seasonal needs. Acorn gathering competitions replace summer's tag. Their prize is practical wool mittens. You notice subtle changes in yourself. Where last year's first cold snap brought dread, now you feel only focused readiness. Your winter skills, hard-won through suffering, have become reliable tools rather than desperate measures. Fire building takes half last year's time. You instinctively dress in effective layers. Food calculations require no conscious thought. Storm warnings trigger automatic preparations. The animals sense the shift too. The cow's milk production slows naturally. Chickens molt their glossy feathers. Even the dogs grow thicker coats, their bodies anticipating what the calendar confirms. Only the newest livestock, spring's calves and lambs, remain oblivious to the coming trial, their playful headbutts and frolics belying winter's severity. As the season progresses, you perform small rituals of preparation, nailing draft stoppers to cabin doors, testing the ice fishing auger's blades, sorting seeds for next year's planting, waxing sled runners for winter travel. Each task carries unexpected satisfaction, the pleasure of competence replacing last year's fear. Where once you saw only winter's threats, now you recognize its peculiar gifts, the clarity of cold air, the beauty of frosted windows, the deep satisfaction of a well-stocked larder. Children, so free in summer's abandon, now unconsciously adopt winter habits. They stockpile hickory nuts in secret caches. They test their breath's visibility on chilly mornings. They practice the fire-starting techniques you drilled into them last February. Their play has taken on purposeful tones, building mock root cellars instead of summer's forts, pretending to preserve imaginary harvests. The first hard frost arrives on schedule, its crystalline patterns decorating your pumpkin patch. You walk the frozen rows at dawn, your breath pluming in the air, and feel something surprising, not dread, but quiet pride. The stored food, the stacked wood, the carefully maintained tools all testify to lessons earned through hardship. Standing at your field's edge, watching the sunrise gild frosted grass, you realize the deepest change winter wrought wasn't in your cellar or barn, but in your mind. Where once you saw only deprivation, you now recognize resilience. The same hands that trembled last year while counting dwindling supplies now move with calm assurance as they check full storage bins. And when the season's first snowflakes come, not a blizzard's assault but a gentle test, you don't flinch. You simply button your collar, check the livestock one last time, and walk inside to stoke the waiting fire. Winter may bring challenges, but you've learned the most important lesson. Survival isn't just about enduring the cold, but about carrying summer's warmth within you. The first true snow arrives silently overnight, transforming the world with its pale magic. You wake to a brightness seeping through the cabin's cracks, a quality of light unmistakable to anyone who's survived a frontier winter. When you open the door, the sight takes your breath away. Every branch, every fence post, every blade of grass wearing pristine white. The air holds that peculiar winter hush, absorbing sound into its crystalline embrace. Your hands, resting on the doorframe, show no tremor this year. The same fingers that fumbled with frozen kindling last winter now move with quiet assurance as you prepare the morning fire. The stove ignites on the first try, its flames dancing behind the iron door. Outside, the rising sun paints the snowscape in pinks and golds, beauty and danger woven together. This winter differs from the last in countless small ways. The woodpile stretches 3 rows deep under its protective tarp. Shelves bow under preserves, jars of berries, crocks of sauerkraut, sacks of dried beans. Woolens hang ready by the door, their moth holes neatly mended. A new rope guide stretches taut between cabin and barn. Yet the greatest change isn't in your stores, but in your spirit. Where last winter's first snow brought dread, now you feel only focused readiness. You dress methodically, wool stockings, layered shirts, the good mittens with the rabbit fur lining. The cold still bites when you step outside, but your body knows how to respond. Circulation encouraged by subtle muscle flexing, breath controlled to conserve warmth. Morning chores proceed with efficient rhythm. The animals greet you with winter's familiar routines. The cow's warm flank pressed against you as you milk, the chickens clucking impatiently for their scattered grain. Their winter coats have grown in thick, their bodies prepared for the trial ahead. Only the spring-born calf seems puzzled by the snow, its nostrils flaring at the strange white ground. Returning to the cabin, you notice details that would have escaped you last year. How the snow squeaks underfoot at precise temperatures. The way smoke rises straight up in certain weather conditions. Which tree branches will shed their snow load first. These observations aren't just curiosities. They're the language of winter survival, words in a lexicon you've painstakingly learned. Inside, the cabin embraces you with accumulated warmth. The smell of simmering porridge mixes with wood smoke and the earthy scent of wool drying by the fire. Where last year's meals were exercises and sustenance, now they carry hints of foresight. A jar of summer honey for sweetness, dried apples for texture, a pinch of precious cinnamon saved for special occasions. As the day unfolds, you move through familiar tasks with newfound competence. Water gathering, melting snow efficiently in the large kettle. Food preparation, soaking beans overnight for maximum nutrition. Tool maintenance, sharpening blades that will see heavy use. Fuel management, balancing immediate needs with long-term reserves. Neighbors check on each other with winter's renewed closeness. Young Billy Carter stops by with news of a successful deer hunt, offering venison in exchange for your cider press. Old Mrs. Jenkins sends her grandson with a basket of winter greens from her cold frame. These exchanges lack summer's casualness, but carry deeper meaning. Each item a tangible promise of mutual survival. The short day passes in comforting rhythms. Where last winter's darkness felt oppressive, now you appreciate its invitation to rest and reflection. Evening finds you mending clothes by lamplight, the fire's crackle providing steady accompaniment. Your needle moves with precision born of practice, each stitch securing warmth against the cold outside. Children's laughter echoes from the Jenkins cabin nearby, their games adapting to winter's constraints. Through the frosted window, you see their shadow play against glowing hides, puppet shows performed with mittened hands. Their resilience comforts you. They've already internalized lessons that took you all last winter to learn. As night deepens, you perform the bedtime ritual with ceremonial care. The fire banked precisely to last till morning. Water jugs filled against nighttime thirst. An extra blanket laid across the foot of the bed. The door barred against both predators and drafts. These actions, once born of desperate necessity, now flow with almost artistic precision. Lying in bed, you listen to winter's nighttime sounds, the cabin's settling groans, the occasional tree limb cracking under snow load, the distant howl of a coyote pack. Where these noises once sparked anxiety, now they form a familiar lullaby. Your body relaxes into the mattress, muscles releasing their daily tension in orderly progression from toes to scalp. The cold beyond your blankets remains just as sharp, the winter just as long. But you've changed. The lessons etched into your bones last year have transformed fear into respect, panic into preparation, suffering into strength. As sleep gathers you in its gentle embrace, the last conscious thought that flickers through your mind isn't about survival at all. It's about the quiet satisfaction of looking winter in the eye and knowing you're ready. Outside, the snow continues falling, each flake a tiny promise that this land, this life, will endure. And in your dreams, you're already walking through spring's thaw, carrying winter's hard-won wisdom into whatever seasons may come.